When I was there in Cambodia, I took a survey trip in the northeast section of the country. And on my way, I drove through many villages, and as I passed through these, I saw temple after temple, but I didn't see any church. There were no churches and no witnesses in those places. And still today, there are 11,000 villages without churches. When I came to know Christ at the age of 17, God planted in my heart a desire to share the gospel with everyone, and especially to those who've never heard.
I think the verse in 2 Corinthians 5 says, "The love of Christ compels us," really sums up the motivation for missions. And for me, it really has seemed like when I understand more how Christ loved me and died for me, and that he died for everyone, that's the message that we want to communicate, because those people haven't had the opportunity to hear that message yet.
Our vision for Cambodia is Acts 26:18. We want God to open their eyes so that they would turn from the darkness to the light, from the power of Satan to God. We want to see God transform their lives, and we know that the gospel is powerful enough to do that. Sharing the gospel from Cambodian is very different from sharing it with a Westerner. They are understanding it from a different worldview, and so it requires much time and patience to learn and to explain it clearly to them.
One of the challenges about sharing the gospel in Cambodia is that, especially the older generation, is not very literate, and so they can't just sit down and read the Bible. When you present the gospel, you have to start by telling them stories, beginning with creation and going all the way through the Bible until they understand the story of Christ coming to earth and the gospel.
Our goal in Cambodia is to establish churches. We begin by pointing Cambodians to their Creator and showing them the gospel, and then bringing them to churches, discipling them, and training leaders.
I'm looking forward to getting to know Cambodian women and building relationships with them. We'll be able to invite them into my home and also go and visit them and learn about their culture. Hopefully, through those contacts, we'll be able to share the gospel with them.
We long to see God raise up Cambodian men who love God, who love His Word, and want to shepherd their own people and teach them the Word. They're the ones who can meet the needs of their people best. We are convinced that apart from God's help, we can do nothing. Cambodia has been a stronghold of the devil for thousands of years, and us entering is not going to be an easy task. So we need the prayers of God's people. We need prayers for clarity as we explain the gospel. We need prayers for boldness as we share the gospel. We need prayers for conversions, that God would bring these people to understand the gospel and come to Christ. God has called us to Cambodia, and we can't wait to get there and share the gospel with those who never heard it. Sing a song called "For the Sake of Thy Name," written by a missionary, Chris Wright in Cambodia. He wrote this and posted it on the wall in his office, and I happened to be in his office quite often when I was there, and saw it and decided to put it to a tune. And this phrase, "for the sake of your name," it's in many places in Scripture. One of my favorites is from 3 John, where it describes first century missionaries who would travel around, and it says they went out for the sake of his name. And this is why we are going, because Jesus Christ's name is worth being worshipped and adored.
Pro who will go to tell them the message of salvation as servants of the Lord for the sake of his name. For the sake of my name will go forth to serve thee. For the sake of my name, faithful worshipers to see. For the sake of my name, Lord, help us to proclaim thy word throughout the world. For the sake of thy name.
Chosen from every nation, bought by his precious blood, to exalt all his mercy and praise his holy name. Oh, who will sing to soldiers to tell of his great love, as servants of the Lord, for the sake of his name.
For the sake of thy name, will go forth to serve thee. For the sake of thy name, faithful worshipers to see. For the sake of thy name, Lord, help us to proclaim thy word throughout the world. For the sake of thy name, triumphantly they sing, worthy is the Lamb. Hallelujah to the King, to the great I am. Oh, who will pray victorious in earnest to their King, as servants of the Lord, for the sake of his name. For the sake of thy name, will go forth to serve thee. For the sake of thy name, faithful worshipers to see. For the sake of thy name, Lord, help us to proclaim thy word throughout the world. For the sake of thy name.
Thank you very much, Matt and Becky. Please get a chance to go to their table in the foyer and pick up their prayer cards, sign up for prayer requests, and even commit to praying for them on a regular basis. And what a blessing they have been. They've been with us throughout the weekend. They've been with our youth groups and our career group yesterday, taught Sunday school this morning, and we'll be at our adult Bible study, our all-comers Bible study this evening. And we really appreciate making themselves available this weekend to us. Well, we are also very grateful for our visitors that come to Fellowship Bible Church. And if you get a chance to sign our guest book or fill out the yellow card, we want to send a little note just appreciating you being here. Meanwhile, we want to just have our church family look around and shake hands and greet one another, and hopefully some of our visitors will meet some of you folks today. We'll also dismiss the children, but we're going to leave the middle schoolers here, and they're going to sit in our presentation today. Well, let's greet one another. Hsiung, who is going to make a presentation for us this morning. He is the social media guru, they call him, informally, at the Mountain View Police Department. And we have a lot of folks that are working in social media and using it as a wonderful tool. And we are now seeing a day where we are seeing more people respond to churches through websites than even one-person invitation. Not that we should stop personal invitation, but we need to catch up in the area of using some of these modern technologies to bring the gospel forward and out there. And as we've been preaching through 1 Corinthians 7. We're going to continue next week on verse 10, talking about the issue of divorce. But we've been talking about marriage, singleness, sexuality. We've been talking about, in the book of 1 Corinthians, we'll be talking about spiritual gifts. And all of these things are stewardships that God entrusts us with. And as we enter these realms, we need to know that they can be used very powerfully, but they can be used insidiously as well. And so we want to enter into this social media realm, this internet realm, with our eyes open. Open for opportunities to share the gospel, but also being aware of its dangers. And Chris is going to share with us some of those dangers. But I wanted to draw attention to a couple of thoughts in the scriptures before we jump into some of its application. And a lot of times we think of the internet, we think of technology, we think of Facebook or emails or Twitter as just kind of an amoral tool. You know, that there's no morality attached to it. It's what we make of it. It's what we do with it that might be right or wrong. But may I challenge even some of our thinking there, because I believe that technology is not necessarily amoral. There can be a moral factor to technology itself. There was a fellow by the name of Marshall McLuhan who kind of coined the phrase that the medium is the message. The medium is the message. And the way it's explained, and I gave you the quote here from Nicholas Carr, he said, in the long run, a medium's content matters less than the medium itself in influencing how we think and act. Not the content so much as it is the medium itself. As our window into the world and onto ourselves, a popular medium molds what we see and how we see it. And eventually, if we use it enough, it changes who we are as individuals and as a society. So as the media itself has impact on how we think, on how we interact and how we deal with others, there is a moral aspect to technology, and so we need to be on guard. We need to make sure that we don't become so engrossed in the intricacies of technology that we forget the simplicity of Christ. In fact, 2 Corinthians 11:3, I have listed in your notes there, is so your minds may be corrupted from the simplicity that is in Christ. We need to guard ourselves that technology doesn't take us from the simplicity of the gospel. Or to realize that the devil can make himself as an angel of light and blind us from the truth of Jesus Christ. We are so into maybe what we are tweeting, what we are texting, what we are status updating, that we need to realize that there is a spiritual warfare out there. And the aspects of social media can be used for good, it can be used for evil. And we want to make sure that every tweet comes to the captivity, to the obedience of Jesus Christ, as 2 Corinthians 10 talks about. There are social media people who are trying to knock down the knowledge of God. And we need to bring every thought, every tweet, every status update, every post into the captivity of the obedience of Jesus Christ. And so we need to be intentional in making sure there's a moral aspect to what we do in social media, because it will impact others for Christ. Secondly, the technological community ought not to replace the church community. So many of us might now start identifying ourselves by how many friends we have on Facebook, how many followers we have in Twitter, and how many connections we have in LinkedIn. You know, and say, well, look at my contact list, and look who is second, third generation LinkedIn connections to who I am. But we need to realize we are identified by being the body of Christ. And that is our most important identity. And we are not to allow our social networks to replace the clear one another's that need to be done in person that the scripture encourages to do. I mean, we don't see a whole lot of tweets and texts and status updates that are focused on praying for one another, admonishing one another, confessing our sins to one another, building up one another. We need to make sure that we don't forsake the assembling of ourselves, but we encourage one another so much the more as we see the day drawing near. And so it's important that we that we are not replacing our church community with an online community. It may be an opportunity for witness, but it doesn't replace making disciples. Right? And that's hard work person to person. Third, we need to guard ourselves from making sure our technology is not about self-promotion, but Christ promotion. And we want to be very intentional there. I came across a wonderful book called Unfriend Yourself. 3 days to detox, discern, and decide about social media. I got it free, it's only $2.95 now, but it's 3 chapters long. And it's in the Kindle edition. And the author, Tennant, says that self-presentation plus sinful selves equals self-promotion. And there's a lot of that goes on in a Facebook status and a Twitter status where it's all about us and who we are, and we inflate who we are, and we're able to hide what we're not. And then as we read other people's statuses and other people's posts, we start comparing ourselves with them, and we want to become more or superior to them in a lot of these ways in self-promotion. And we need to make sure that we are intentional by using social media for Christ promotion. As you know, we even have an outreach page, and FPC has a Facebook outreach page. We have a website. We want to be interactive with the community, and we have some private sections where we'll post our financial accountability to the church family and things like that. We even have a private FPC page, which we have an administrator that you go to the church, you don't get into the site, so it stays in a private way. But there's an aspect where we want to be public in advertising ourselves as well. So there's 2 FPC pages, and but it's important that we use social media for good. John Piper, popular pastor, said, "I find Twitter to be kind of a taunt. Okay, truth lover. See what you can do with 140 characters. You say your mission is to spread a passion for the supremacy of Christ in all things? Well, this is one of those all things. Can you magnify Christ with a thimble full of letters?" Right? So it's Twitter, it lets you post something with only 140 characters. So he responded this: "The sovereign Lord of the earth and sky puts camels through a needle's eye. And if his wisdom see it meets, he will put worlds inside a tweet." And so may we use social media for good, but also know there's an insidious side to it, and Lieutenant Chris is going to come and explain that to us. Let's welcome him.
Thank you very much, Pastor Steve. Good morning. I'm normally here at first service, so some of you I recognize and some I don't, but I'll start off with a little story. God works in mysterious ways. We shared with first service that 20 years ago, when I was looking at a career and what I wanted to do, I remember telling my friends, I don't want to be in the office. I want to be outdoors. I want to have some exciting fun, a little bit of adrenaline. Became a cop in Mountain View, and then fast forward 20 years, what am I doing? I'm in an office. I write emails all day. I don't get to go on the fun calls anymore. So I think that's God with a good sense of humor. But it has brought us here. So what I do now in Mountain View is a lot of our social media stuff. Not quite as exciting. Our kids are boys now that some of you might know, or you probably hear them before you see them. But they're the tornado you see running around downstairs usually. They like to play cops and robbers now. It's kind of funny because I always tell them, okay guys, Always got to be the cop, right? Never be the robber. But they used to greet me earlier this year when I got home, like, Dad, did you catch a bad guy? Because they finally started to understand what I did for a living. I'd walk in and go, no, not today. I kind of half jokingly would say, well, I wrote some emails and send out a few tweets. And they'd kind of look at me confused, and the next day they'd be like, Dad, did you catch a bad guy? I go, well, I tweeted about an officer who works for us who caught a bad guy, and they'd be like, oh, whatever. And now it's kind of boring, but I get home and they're like, hey Dad, did you tweet about anything? And so I had to pull Yvonne aside and go, okay, you have to promise me something, husband and wife. Please, when the kids get a little older, you got to tell them, Dad used to be cool, because I used to do cool things, really, I used to do cool, but no, I don't think the kids are going to believe me anymore. So anyway, today we're going to talk about social media, and I don't want to scare anybody or make anyone paranoid, but I think it is important for people to understand what your phone can do, both for the good and for the bad, and also what bad guys out there can use your phone and the information that you post on the internet for good or bad, actually mostly bad. Just a show of hands. And why is it working? Okay. Who has a smartphone here? Right, just about everybody. How many iPhones are in the crowd? Yay. How many Androids? Okay, not too bad. Who has a Facebook account? Everybody? Okay, good. How many of you with a Facebook account look at your privacy settings? Oh, it's good, very good. Pinterest users out here? Some, very good. Twitter? Don't be shy, it's okay. You don't be embarrassed. How many of you have teenagers or are a teenager? Okay, and you guys play games? You play on the Xbox 360, Wii? How many play like Words with Friends or Candy Crush? Don't get embarrassed. All right. We're going to talk about that and why it's relevant because as you listen to the presentation today, put on your bad guy hat for a second and think about how the crooks out there are potentially exploiting the information that you put out in a couple different ways. One being ID theft. What kind of information are you putting out that someone else could use to take over your ID, open credit cards in your name? Or what about cyber stalking? Let's say you shared a picture and now all of a sudden you have an unwanted guest who keeps bugging you. Now they found out your email address or they found out where you live. And then predators. Predators are out there. That's a sad fact. But they're out there and they spend the majority of their day looking for victims to exploit, looking for kids to contact. So we'll talk about that. Hopefully by the time we're done here, you don't throw your phone away. But I would like to see that everyone here has left at least with a better knowledge of your privacy settings and the GPS settings. So how does your phone or camera work? My disclaimer here is I flunked geometry in high school. But I will give you the dumbed-down cop version of how our cell phones work. And basically it's this. There's triangulation going on, and there's cell towers everywhere. So in first service I shared that you have 3 cell towers, and using that your phone can basically pinpoint anywhere you are on the earth. John Wayne corrected me and said it's actually 2 cell towers, and that's why I flunked geometry. So the 2 cell towers and your cell phone makes the 3rd point, and that's, in geometry terms, is what gives you your location on the earth. Added to that, satellites or Wi-Fi. Like right now, I'm operating off my Wi-Fi, a little hotspot. That also puts your footprint on a map, or it drops a pin on the map where I'm located right now. How many of you recognize this guy? How many watch his show, Mythbusters? Adam Savage, right? He should know better. He's a smart guy, right? But a couple years ago, he took a picture of a car that he had sold in front of his house, and he tweeted it. Sent it out on Twitter. Great, whatever. What he didn't do was disable the GPS settings that were in the phone that basically stamped his longitude and latitude right onto this picture. And so when he sent it out there to the thousands of users or followers that follow him on Twitter, everybody knew where he lived. Okay? And it's that fast. It's very quick that it happens like that. So what we want to do is monitor our privacy. And I mentioned it just a second ago. The data is called EXIF, E-X-I-F. You don't really need to know that term other than to know that if this feature is turned on in your phone, or some cameras that you buy off the shelf have a new feature that lets you know, take a picture and it'll say, hey, we're at the Yosemite or we're at Disneyland. that data gets embedded into the photo. And if you share that, just like the guy on Mythbusters, that's how you get compromised. So I'm going to show you a quick little video here. Sorry. Or I can show you the missionary movie again. Probably a little more exciting. But this guy, just a little YouTube video that he put together. He's a little quirky, but look at the message, and it's very interesting what he does and how he explains.
Here I am in Southern California. It's such a gorgeous and beautiful day today. It's so gorgeous here. I just got to look at the picture. To find out the location of where a picture was taken, you can simply navigate to the website where the picture is located online. And I'm going to click and drag the picture to my desktop and run a special program. And if you notice, it now has the GPS information for where that picture was taken. So if I click on this, it will launch Google Earth and show me where it is located. So I can zoom in here, and I see it's a big building, but it doesn't really tell me where it's located or what the building is. So if I click here, so we see it's in Southern California, and if we keep scrolling down, I was actually located at the Richard Nixon Presidential Library. You may be wondering how this is possible. Most modern cell phones out of the box embed location information called geotags into each picture taken. These geotags are extremely precise and are accurate to within a few feet. So, as children upload pictures throughout the day, they are inadvertently disclosing their exact location to everybody on the internet. Unfortunately, child predators are very techno-savvy and use this information to build a victim profile. Tragically, this can result in a child being located and exploited by a pedophile. So here is a fictional victim profile that I created to show you how a pedophile would use it. Using any mapping program they find online, they would go ahead and create a profile of their different victims. And as you can see, all of the locations where that child may live is located here on the map. So you have their home, you have their favorite locations where they like to hang out after school, the library they go to study, and even their high school. So using this, you can see that a pedophile can go ahead and develop a strategy to know exactly where the child is going to be at any time of the day. And to make matters worse, it's possible for a predator to go ahead and actually get a street view of, say, the child's home, of their high school, and the various places they like to hang out.
The important takeaway here is that your phone needs the geotag features to do what it does best. So if you use like Google Maps to find directions, or if you use Yelp, you need to enable those features on your phone in order to make the phone let it do what it's meant to do. But the takeaway again is there's a camera on your phone. There's a feature that you want to make sure that you disable, and we'll go into a little bit of that later. The other thing to protect yourself from identity theft is what kind of information you put online. I mean, time after time we're being asked for surveys, fill out forms and everything. And something that I like to do is change my birth date. If it's not an official government document that I don't need the real birth date on, I'll just change it to January 1st, put the same year of my birth. Because really all those companies need it for is marketing. They're in it for marketing. But why would you want to give your actual birth date? Because the key components of getting your identity exploited is birth date, address, social security number. If you have a couple of those, you can normally find the rest online. So you want the trick in the game is to take away as many of those as you can. And one of those ways is Google yourself. And I can do that right now. I will embarrass myself for the sake of church here. So what you want to do, and it looks like the Wi-Fi is not cooperating. Here we go. So when you get home, or if you want to do it from the comfort of your pew right now, just using your mobile phone, if you Googled yourself, you would start to see things that show up. This is all public, so whatever's on here is public. And most people know this, but what you want to do is go over to the images, because any image out there that Google has in their database about you is going to show up. And these are the other Chris Hsiungs in the entire planet. Well, maybe not all of them. But, this picture that I have here, I'm okay with because it's my official work kind of profile photo. It's out there on our City of Mountain View website, not a big deal. What I don't want to see are pictures of my family, pictures of my kids that are associated out there. So when you get home, check that, just see what's out there, because again, this is public. And these guys are kind of interesting looking guys. Okay, so that's one thing to do. The other thing is not only monitor your privacy, but to control your privacy. Okay, so with Facebook, you have private photos and public photos. Now, there's two different kinds. On Facebook, there's a big photo up across the top. That's called the cover photo. And then there's a square photo next to your name. That's the profile photo. So no matter what you have your settings set on, those are public. Okay. So if you have a picture of you and your family in front of your house as your cover photo, there's nothing that you can do to block that. That is completely public. Okay. So that's why you want to take care and caution in the picture you choose for your cover photo. Pick some scenery. Pick something that might obscure at least where you live. And then what you want to do is also log in from a different computer, or clear your cookies in your browser, or just log in not as yourself, but just as a stranger, and view your profile and see what pictures are visible if you are a stranger. You want to make sure your settings are locked down pretty good. And then how many people use Instagram or Foursquare? Okay, there's a feature on Instagram. This question came up in first service about is it safe for teenagers to use and stuff. I'd say yes, as long as you turn off the photo mapping feature, because there's a tab in the preferences that if you have it on, it basically tells the world where every single photo you took is. And if that photo was taken in your bedroom or in your house or at your school, that's not good. Okay, and then an added layer of security would be to make your Instagram or your Twitter account private, so that only those people you allow in see those. Okay, I'll show you one thing called Bing Maps, and this is. Sorry, I have to keep looking at my face. Change that. So here we have, if someone is a Twitter user and they do not disable this feature, what you're seeing here is a live feed, basically, that's using Google Maps as its overlay. So anyone who sends a tweet out, it's pinpointing where they are. Okay, so this person here, this Twitter user, SFBay Road Alerts, is putting stuff out. And that's okay, because that's, I guess, they're doing traffic alerts. But you can imagine how much trouble you can get in if you're posting pictures of yourself. And there's an actual case study up in San Francisco at Golden Gate Park where a lady was out there in the park and she did one of these, took a picture of herself, and then she started doing this. And so what's the bad guy stalker looking at? He's going, wow, she's probably tweeting it or putting it up on Facebook. So he jumps onto a site like this and then sees her pop up right on the map in Golden Gate Park. And from that information, you can then click on their name and get their profile history and their prior tweets, and then start to build a profile as a victim. And again, that's not something you want to have done for you or your kids or your family. So talking about Facebook safety, everybody should do this. Go up in the upper right corner of your Facebook profiles, click on the gear icon, and then drop it down and look at each of the privacy settings. Because ideally what you want is only your friends can view your photos, okay, or only the select people. And if you have a lot of friends that you're just not sure, you kind of lost count over time, you probably want to at least create a closer knit group of friends that you're comfortable sharing pictures with, and only share photos or posts to that group. And Facebook has a lot of nice how-to tutorials on how to do that. So let me show you my cover photo. So these are my kids. See? Would you be able to pick them out of the crowd? Probably not. And I did this on purpose, both to send a message to any would-be stalker or predator that my daughter knows how to use a 45 fly. And that if you mess with the twins, they're Iron Man, so they can fly around and shoot lasers at you. But again, remember what I said earlier. These are public photos. Okay, so what you don't see is a photo of my house. You don't see a facial photo of my kids, because I don't want that out there for the public to see. And I know in law enforcement we're especially paranoid because we don't want our identities, we do what we do at work, we put bad guys away, and then we don't want the bad guys finding us at home. So these are some things we're always constantly thinking about, but we want to pass that on to you as something to consider. Okay, so just to stop and think about what's in your photos. Even if you took off the GPS geotagging feature, be mindful of what your background is. If you take a picture in front of your car and your license plate is sticking out, or you're in front of your house and your house number is showing, even if you took off all those things, guess what? Google has a way to match your picture against the database that they have. So Google is this giant kind of aggregator of information. Right? I'm going to show you what happens is, you see, look at this picture here. That's FBC, right? So let's say you stood on the street, took a picture of FBC. And then you didn't know where that picture was taken. You emailed to a friend, and now I'm Mr. Bad Guy, and I hope your Wi-Fi works, because it's... okay. There we go. Can you see that? Okay. So there's not only Google search, which everyone is familiar with, but there's Google image search. So from here, you can basically drop down and find any picture you have in your hard drive. And if it's taken at a public place where a Google Street View car might have driven by, or the Eiffel Tower, for instance, it can cross-match that. So here's the same FBC picture that we took earlier. Okay, you double-click that, you upload it, and Google starts to think, where on the internet have we seen this? Oops, try that again. Where have we seen this image before? And it recognizes it as, it's a picture that was taken, and I don't know why it's cutting off the right side, but anyway, it associates it. So knowing, most of you have probably gone by, looked at Google Street View, each and every one of those photos in the search world is just an algorithm, it's just data. So Google search engines will compare any picture that you upload into that and say, yeah, that's at this location, and it was taken from this angle. So kind of scary, but that's kind of the world we live in these days. So be mindful of what you put in your background. And again, if you're not going to post your pictures, if you're not going to send them out to the internet, not as big of a deal, but here's the catch, is if you'd only shared your picture with, say, your close friends, a brother or sister, but their Facebook or their Twitter settings are not locked down, you've just basically opened up kind of that tunnel for a potential ID theft, stalkers, predators, whatever, to view or see that information. So again, you kind of know who your friends are, and you got to hope that your friends and family lock down their profiles so that the photos that are shared and stuff just don't go beyond what it's intended. Okay, so if you have an iPhone or an Android device, these are the ways that you would disable this feature. Now keep in mind, you don't want to disable all of the GPS features because again, it can kind of make your phone useless. But on the Apple, you want to go to the the privacy and then the camera settings and just flip that little circle part to off. And the Android, unfortunately, Android keeps changing. Like when they do an update, it changes the location where these features are, so I can't always say for sure. But the nice thing is you can go onto Google and just type in there, how do I turn off GPS settings for my phone, and then you type in your model number, and stuff, it'll tell you. So it's quite handy in that way. In the world of online gaming, and just a couple years ago when I gave this presentation to like Sunlight or CTF, we were talking more about, playing online like Call of Duty or things like that. It was more overt because they were online forums. And we would always tell the teenagers and the kids, hey, be careful who you're talking to. It's actually progressed to the point now where even games like Words with Friends or these other smaller apps that run on your phone, as long as there's a way for you to play with a stranger, and for that stranger to talk to you, that is a potential way for a predator to approach and to start talking to a child or a teenager. And the way that they exploit is not necessarily overt like you would imagine. I mean, we imagine the bad guy kind of looking hunched over, with maybe a hood, and, a scowl, and a big giant bowl, and is mean. It's actually farthest from the truth. The predators these days, they don't get to exploit the kids until they've developed a rapport relationship with the child. So that's why these conversations online will normally take the shape of, hey, how's it going? Talk about the game, talk about the weather, talk about sports. And by the time the exploitation takes place, it's months or years down the road. And these predators are patient enough to wait for that. And then speaking on the topic of predators, this is a website I encourage you to kind of look at. It is called crimereports.com. And in our neighborhood, most of the police departments will upload their data to these reports. So you can see in your neighborhood if there's been a break-in or anything like that. But more importantly are these little red dots. Because these red dots show where registered sex offenders are. So if you live or your school is near one, or you work near one, or if the internet's kind of slow right now, but a lot of times they'll show faces. So if you ever had a question like, there's this kind of weird guy that's always at the park and there's some kids there. It's just good to be mindful of that. And I show this not to freak everybody out, but it's more of not being paranoid, but being aware. Because the world we live in, the comfort of FBC, I mean, in this setting, we can trust everybody, right? A lot of us have grown up together in the church. But when we leave the doors, when we go out into the world, we go to work, or we go to school, there's bad people out there. There's a lot of bad people out there, and they're manipulated. And it's kind of incumbent upon us, as parents, as adults, or as whatever, to be aware and not be, victim or become a victim. So just in conclusion, just assume that the stuff you share could be could be public. Fortunately, right now, Facebook actually strips the GPS stuff off of the pictures when you post it. But Facebook being notorious, they always will change the rules, and don't always tell everybody. So I know they might strip it, but I also know that they keep that info, because that's data, and data is money in today's kind of high-tech technology world. So what you want to do is make sure that you do that yourself, and control your own privacy. And just be cautious about the stuff that you put out there. Talk to your kids about what they're sharing and then how they're playing the games. If you're not sure, it's very hard to keep up to date with the teenagers, the games and the apps and stuff they're using. But educate yourself. Go onto Google and say, Words with Friends, child danger. And just search that term, and then you'd be surprised. Someone out on the internet is talking about that. So at this time, I just wanted to spend a few minutes in case anyone had any questions that I could answer.
The presentation that you're just doing is there any way you can send it to us? Because if we don't have somebody who's here.
Yeah, I believe it's being streamed onto our church YouTube account. I think later this afternoon, if you go to the FBC website, there should be a link on there somewhere. But I can also put the presentation out to the FBC private Facebook page.
Thank you.
Any questions? And again, it's not paranoia. I don't want you to throw your phones away or anything, but just be educated. And I'm always around if you have any questions. Just let me know. After first service, we had a little mini line of people shutting off their apps, their camera apps up here, so you can do that too. So, Pastor Steve.
As you well know, we want to use social media for the glory of God. We have now started posting sermons up on YouTube. Just go to FBC YouTube and search that, and it'll give you all of our past sermons. We are seeing and tracking in churches that more people are coming through websites than they are through personal invitations. So we don't want to stop inviting, but we know that this can be a real tool. We run Google Analytics and on our FBC website, and we were astounded at how many people would actually visit it and how we really want it to be a tool. Again, we can use it for good, it can be used for evil. We need to be stewards of the various realms in our life, and that we might be faithful in doing that. So I am grateful for Chris, and we also have other very techie guys here. Alan, who comes to first service, also does a lot of the high-tech crimes things, and it keeps us sharp and keeps us on guard. But may you use your social media for the glory of God, and may that be your purpose. See, now you're seeing how technology can be have moral impact. It's not just an amoral tool. And you can see how we need to make sure it doesn't replace our church community, but yet we can also see how it can be used in promotion of Jesus Christ. And may He be glorified when we bring every tweet captive to the obedience of Jesus Christ. When we bring every post or every update to the obedience of Jesus Christ. And that's our goal, to make sure that our minds and our hearts are right in the area of social media. Let's stand as we close. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we are grateful for the Lord Jesus Christ, because as we even talked about the insidiousness of sin, we know that this is the sin that Jesus Christ came to die for. We thank you that as much evil as there is in the world, it is the defeat of evil that Jesus accomplishes, and He accomplished it at the cross when He died on the cross for the penalty of our sin. And He proved that death, sin, could not hold Him when He resurrected from the dead 3 days later. And Father, it is in this we put our trust and hope, ultimately, as we share Jesus Christ, who is the Word, the one who communicates everything about you and His being and in His life, and even in His death and resurrection. Father, we also know that when it comes to the Word, we are responsible in this area, and that now that the words are transitioning from printed pages and manuscripts to that which is typed and that which is online, that which is now worldwide accessible through the internet. Father, we are entrusted with another realm to